Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you on board for episode 204. Good grief, 204. It's Rail Week this week, or rather next week, because this is a pre-record. But for you watching, it's Rail Week right now. It's also National Apprenticeships Week. And the good thing about this is this offered an opportunity to do something different for the Rail Natter Rail Week episode, which we skipped last year because of baby reasons. But we're back again, doing something different. We'll repeat this next year as well, but in person. But this time we used the joys of teams to get a panel of previous apprentices who've been through the process, and me, and also then we had an audience of apprentices who asked some questions about asking us questions about what. Well, you'll see the questions, but they're really good questions. I recorded this yesterday. Really good questions, some really interesting answers, and I think it's some really. I think it's a really useful Q&A. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to myself to welcome you to tonight's Rail Natter. As the Intercity 225 fades away, I'm here. I'm also in this machine that's being recorded by someone else, so that hopefully will work. Welcome, everyone. I am joined, as I've just hinted at in the intro, that none of these people have heard because I've not recorded it yet. I'm joined by a huge range of people, the most guests that Rail Natter has ever had on the episode. We have got 11 people, of which we have some kind of mid-career, some more experienced people, and we have some apprentices who are kind of earlier in their career, kind of super early, a couple of years into their career. This is going to be a bit of an apprentice question time type situation where the apprentices are going to ask us mid-career people who think we know everything. The apprentices are going to ask us questions that we're going to be baffled by, and hopefully we'll come up with some sort of a coherent answer. In doing so, maybe creating something useful for you, the viewer at home watching this Rail Natter during Rail Week. So, without further ado, I'm first of all going to say, can everyone who thinks of themselves as a panelist here, as a mid-career person, can you give a wave into camera? Go on, give us a wave. There we are. So we've got Sam, we've got Caitlin, and we've got James. Sam, I tell you what, we're going to go through. Introduce yourself. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell everyone who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. Hi, everybody. I am Sam Arrowsmith. I'm project manager at HS2, and I'm responsible for an 11 kilometre section of the route, kind of South Warwickshire, West Northamptonshire. I've got 2 green tunnels, a load of kind of earthworks, embankments, some big viaducts and things like that. And I've been at HS2 for 3.5 years now. Very good. So there's Sam. Thank you, Sam. Caitlin, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi everybody, I'm Caitlin Gent, Fleet Commercial Engineer for TransPennine Express. For those who don't know us, we're a train operating company. I work alongside my head of Fleet Commercial and Fleet Delivery Managers, and we deliver and manage engineering contracts and service contracts. I've been with the company 7 years now, which feels frightening to say because I still feel brand new. So that's including my apprenticeship time, but yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully passing on some wisdom to you today.
It's very cool to have Caitlin on because Caitlin is one of my early teaching victims when I taught at the National College for High Speed Rail. So, and that sounds more sinister than I intended to be. No, she just had to deal with me teaching track engineering for like 1 day every 2 weeks.
Which is very interesting. I must admit, it was very good.
Oh well, thanks, Caitlin. The fact that you're still in the industry suggests that it couldn't have been quite that bad. Lastly, in our group of panelists, other than me, but everyone on here knows who I am. I'm so sorry. James, introduce yourself, James.
Afternoon, Gareth. Yeah, don't do yourself down. Like Caitlin, you also did teach me as well when you well, I think you still do, don't you? Lecture partly with BCRRE. So yeah, I'm an engineer by background, but I am an engineering manager for HS2. I've been on the project for 3.5 years. Started the same time as Sam did, but I took the graduate path through HS2, but have had many experience working with apprentices throughout my short so far working career. But like everyone else, I'm still here. So there must be a good message. There must be a reason I'm still here.
Yeah, it's always good to have people. Yeah, there's no one too cynical on the call, kind of coming to their career and shrugging their shoulders and telling people to get out of the industry as quickly as possible. Yeah, because last time we did a Rail Week episode, we were finding it increasingly difficult to convince ourselves that the rail industry was sort of still self-sustaining, because things were going, and it's not got better. And so we thought, right, let's give up on us trying to convince people that everything is rosy in the rail industry. Let's actually talk to some people who have made the decision to join the industry and hopefully are enjoying it. And so the range of people, we're going to go through. So hello, everyone at home. We're going to go through. Everyone here has got a question of they've got their own unique story, and they're going to ask us a question. The apprentices, all the other apprentices may chip in as well. But it is National Apprenticeships Week, so this it's not for us. It is for in real time for this when this goes out in a week. The time moves, so everyone on here is who's going to ask those questions is an apprentice, and therefore this should be a National Apprenticeships Week relevant bit of content. So without further ado. I suppose, okay, so people who maybe haven't watched this, if there's Rail Week people coming and watching this who don't know who I am, I will say that. My name's Gareth Dennis. I'm a principal track engineer and the incoming professional head of track for Sistra in the UK. I've done teaching of apprentices. I do teaching of various bits and pieces, but also lead a team from a technical side. So hopefully I might have an answer or two, but I shall be deferring to James, Sam, and Caitlin in the main. Without further ado, there's everyone now, all of the apprentices on the call, and I'm like, oh God, who's he going to pick? Who's he going to go for? You know what I'm going to go for? I'm going to go with Harry. Let's start with Harry. Harry, you're the top, only because you're in the middle of the top of my screen. Tell us a bit about yourself. What's your kind of background, briefly, and then what is your question for the panel?
Hi, I'm Harry Phillips. I'm a project management apprentice at HS2. I actually work for Sam, so on the same bit. He is my boss there, watching me. And I joined the project like a year and a half ago now, and I came straight out of sixth form, so still very early on in my career. And my question for the panel, who have all done an apprenticeship or a graduate scheme, is what was the transition from being an apprentice or a graduate into that sort of full-time role as an actual job? Not that an apprenticeship is an actual job, but you know what I mean.
A very good question. Anyone who wants to pick that one up? Actually, Caitlin, do you want to answer that first? Because I'm genuinely curious. It's a really good question. I'm genuinely curious to know what that was like for you. Go and tell us.
It was quite challenging at the time because it was in the middle of COVID and the lockdown. So it was a bit of an overlap for me where I was actually still trying to complete the last section of my apprenticeship, but because we was working from home and because of lockdown, I needed to move into a role. So I then became assistant commercial engineer. So in that time, it was quite challenging because it was trying to get to grips with the new role, but working from home and not really having accessibility to your team and being able to just have those discussions around, I'm not actually sure what I understand this piece of work. Can you help me? So in that sense, it was quite challenging. I actually missed being apprentice, because I feel like you had the flexibility of going around the industry, or at least I did in my apprenticeship, and meeting new people and understanding how the industry operates as a whole. So then doing that transition into a full-time role, you've got to get to the grips of your own department and your own role, but you've not got that sort of freedom, if you will. But it was a great step for me. I love the industry, and hence why I'm still here 7 years later. But that learning still continues, is what I'd probably say. And it's just making sure that you've got enough skills to be the best that you can be. And, you know, if you do want to go further, try and have that conversation with your manager. Okay, I've got this role now. How can I get from A to B? And kind of having that future plan for yourself is probably what I'd say is a nice thing to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that timing of COVID landing right at the point where you're making that massive change like, if you like, not ideal. I have a suspicion that James and Sam might say a similar thing, that even outside of COVID, actually that transition is difficult. You know, very briefly for me, and then I'm going to throw it to Sam. James is wiggling his finger as well. So I'm very quickly for me. You know, I left as lots of graduates do. Graduates often end up leaving the company they start with in their graduate scheme and going somewhere else because that company doesn't quite facilitate that transition, or doesn't respond appropriately to what you want to do next. And I suppose, just very briefly, my advice is be you know, if that you know, as an apprentice, you've got it's slightly more complicated because you're kind of, there's a little bit of being tied down, but ensure that you assert yourself on what you want to do, and don't exactly as Caitlin said, you have those conversations. James or Sam, who's wiggling their finger more vigorously? Go on, James, and then we'll see if Sam wants to add anything.
Well, I just thought it might also be useful being a sort of a graduate sandwich, if you like, so I can offer a similar view, and I think we all do agree from our early career sort of experience that it is exactly, I think, the opportunities that are available, as Caitlin said, just because you've got the sort of the title of apprentice or graduate next to your name, actually goes really, really far, and it is about trying to maximize those that title, if you like, so that you can expand your network, you can get excellent experience that you otherwise wouldn't do in just a standard startup job. But then, moving through from that transitional phase from whether it be a graduate scheme or an apprenticeship, it's that identification about what it is that interests you, or more to the point, what doesn't interest you. Because actually the idea that you should know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life feels quite daunting. It feels quite daunting when people ask you at school, at university, at any stage of life, what do you want to do? The question I always hated, and still kind of do, is where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I don't know, frankly. But what I do know is what I don't want to do. And actually, sometimes it's really useful to try things, just as well to know that you like them, but also to know what you don't like. And that's always good learning experiences. And also the other advice, some people often get a bit, it can be a bit daunting, and so you be a bit backward in coming forwards. Throw yourself in. Show you're willing, show that you're willing to try and do your best, because even if you do things and they go wrong, or they don't quite turn out how you plan, it's great learning experience. And more than anything, from what I've learned from most people, is that even if it hasn't turned out as whoever it is that tasked you with doing something or that you're working for, if you've shown willing and you are shown to be sort of a capable and amiable person, it will often look and reflect well on you, even if you don't think it will at the time. So yes, definitely think about what it is that you want to do, your career path, your trajectory. Have those chats with your line managers and see what it is that you want to do moving forwards, but don't feel that you need to limit yourself at the same time. I mean, it was a bit more flexible for me. I didn't stick out my graduate scheme. It was a 2-year scheme. I left after 18 months, but that's because I proactively took on a role within the organization that I thought, you know what, in for a penny, in for a pound. This sounds right up my street. We'll see what it turns out like. The skill set matched some of the experience that I'd taken off of the grad scheme. Lo and behold, I got it. And almost 2 years on, I'm still in that role. I've benefited from both that network, but also shameless plug for YRP at this point. I also joined Young Rail Professionals to expand my network outside of my my company that I'm working in this case HS2. Get to know more about the industry, more about what jobs are available, what's going on. And that, I think, to be honest, is the key thing. To be perfectly honest, it's making those contacts, making those connections, just getting out and about saying hi, innit? Yeah,
absolutely. And Sam, I suppose you might have some more to add, but I suppose it'd be useful, Sam, if you could comment on the fact that sometimes the apprentice arrangement about when you finish your apprenticeship and then transition into the company, that can sometimes be, I wouldn't say more restricted, but there can be, slightly different to a graduate scheme, where once you finish the graduate scheme, usually you're kind of, that's it. You're free to you know, run off if you decide to. I mean, maybe have you got a bit to say on that, and then maybe any other thoughts before we move to our next question?
Yeah, I think so. I think the most important bit is the planning as well. And like Caitlin, James, and yourself, Gareth, have all mentioned, it's about finding what you enjoy. So I think once you kind of get a feel for that, it helps you kind of plan what you want to do afterwards. And I think the main thing, though, for me, is not forgetting that, you know, the apprenticeships themselves are designed to upskill individuals. And so at the point at which you finish your apprenticeship, the idea is you're qualified enough and skillful enough to be able to do the job that you go into. So I think that's the most important bit for me, is just remembering the fact that, you know, you've been on the journey of an apprenticeship, you've been able to complete all of the qualifications and everything you need to do to enable you to get into the job that's designed to help you into. So I think that's the most important bit, really.
Actually, thanks, Sam. Any of the other apprentices maybe have thoughts on this, or vigorous shakings of the head? Feel free to wave at me if you have anything to add. If not, we're going to go to our next question. Christian, tell us a bit about yourself. What's your experience and how things been going, and what's your question?
Yeah, so my name is Chris, or Christian. Doing a project management apprenticeship. Started in September, so I've been there for just under 6 months now. It's been good. I guess my question is, like, what was like the most like fun you've had as an apprentice, and now that you work full time, has there been any other moments that have like been like as equally like fulfilling, I guess?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to keep that. So James and I are going to shut up and just throw this one to Caitlin and Sam. Who wants to go first? Go on. Dive, whoever gets there first with their most fun moment as a. Obviously, Caitlin's going to answer her track work lectures, the National College for High-Speed Rail. Sam, I tell you what, Sam, while Caitlin works out how to politically navigate her way around that one, Sam, what was your most fun that you've had?
I don't know. I think there's a lot. I think the one for me, I think, is to do with the people, really, rather than anything individual that I've done. I think when I joined, I think we had a cohort of around 20 apprentices, and so sort of. And then I joined during COVID, so you kind of had an emphasis of, you know, working on teams, and that helped you, to be honest, build up relationships more than you would in an office. There's quite a spread of, you know, for example, I'm based on site most of the week, so I'm not in the corporate offices, whereas a lot of apprentices are. So when you're on teams, it's more, you're able to contact each other more and things like that. So I think just meeting the other people, and obviously as part of that you'd have socials and you do work events together and that sort of thing, and I think just being in the same space as people that have got the same kind of ambition and, you know, desires as you, I think is fun in itself, as opposed to sort of, you know, a particular day out. I think that'd be my comment.
Yeah, so go on, Caitlin, what's the most fun you've had?
God, it's a really hard one to answer. It's such a good question. I think the most fun I had, we have people in the team called technical inspectors, and they're like what I like to call the AA for the trains, and they're called out by maintenance control, and they go to rectify faults in service. So I was really fortunate that I was able to spend a decent amount of time with our technical inspectors on the network, and I can't even say that it was fun. I think it's more just a funny story that I had to go through this, but part of that fault finding service they provide, we get a lot of toilet issues in service, as you can imagine. So on our 185 fleet, they are our diesel fleet, they have a function where we have to back flush the toilet. So that involves putting a clear, I don't know why it's clear, but a clear bin bag over the bowl, putting the lid down. You then open up a cabinet, and there's 2 buttons that you press, and it reverse flushes the toilet. So there's a sensor in the bowl, and if the water level goes above that sensor in the bowl, it locks itself out of use. So then you then have to empty the bowl. So I, as an apprentice, had to earn my stripes.
Oh no!
Back flush the toilet in service, and it is horrific. And the hardest bit is actually trying to get the bag off the toilet, because it's horizontal. You're trying to keep all its contents within the bag and to take it off. So
I didn't think it would go in this direction.
No, so it's more of a funny story that happened to me. So I missed the fun of being out in service, and you get passengers nosing at you saying what you're up to and that kind of thing. But I'm glad that I don't have to do that anymore.
Exactly that, it's in the rail industry, we don't, particularly when we're kind of on the function side of kind of all the nuts and bolts rather than passenger facing staff, we don't get to be around spending time around passengers and on running trains. So it's kind of quite a unique role, and okay, that story is obviously appalling and horrifying, but actually I can see how it's part of like this kind of quite a unique and fun experience. Yeah, for sure.
I think Gareth's a bit jealous.
Yeah, I want to clean.
I could definitely arrange for that, Gary. If you're more than welcome to come and join us.
There's a future episode. There's a future episode where I go out. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not even joking. Let's go out and you can laugh at me while I attempt to back flush a toilet in a 185. I do moan about the 185 toilet, so maybe that's TP can get their own back on me. Do any of the other apprentices have a funny story that you've anyone have a particularly good? Raise your hand if you've got a particularly good like moment or a moment that you just think was really nice that you want to share. Go on, Adil.
So first of all, my name's Adil, and I'm a land referencing apprenticeship. I'm on the land referencing apprenticeship. I work within a land and property within HS2 that deals with the acquisition and research of land. I think we were only embarked on our apprenticeship about 6 months ago, less than 6 months, same as Christian, in September. And I think upon our actual induction, a few weeks afterwards, we had a site visit. And we were expected to it wasn't a site visit. We were expected to go to London for one of our induction days. And I think on the way back, I think Christian understands what was going to happen. I think Christian understands what happened. We as a cohort obviously stuck together. And on the way back, obviously, you can understand that Euston's quite a very busy station. So the boys were with each other. So there was about 7 or 8 of us together. And obviously, because Euston being so busy, the train platforms are constantly changing. So as you can imagine, it's literally you wait until you see the board for which your train's going to arrive, and you literally go running to it. So we thought we'd decide to go have a quick drink just beforehand. And we had seen that our platform that was assigned to us was platform, I think it was 1. So we had gone to get our drink. We had come back. We've gone to platform 1 and the train's there. And this was the first time, personally, I've taken a train, especially for work, from London. So I was just more hesitant to make sure we're getting on the right train. So what had happened was with these guys, the actual logo on the train was saying that it was going to Scotland, Glasgow. And the train, everybody that was getting on the train had suitcases, etc. You get it. And I was thinking, yeah, this is not for us. So I asked the train driver, yep, where's this going? Is this stopping at New Street, where we are based in Birmingham? He mentioned, no, it's not. So I go, I'm not getting on this train. The other guys, on the other hand, however, said on the train line app, it had mentioned to them, oh yeah, it says it's platform 1, so we're getting on this train. I go ahead, you guys get stuck in Glasgow. You guys are going to have to pay for your train ticket back. So these guys were like, oh yeah, so they were like, yeah, we're going to get on. I made my own decision. I'll go, I'm not doing this. I'd rather wait and go find another train.
They're in and of itself an education about railways, which is don't trust the Trainline app. Sorry, everyone watching from Trainline on platforms, certainly. There we go. So yeah, that sort of shenanigans and chaos seems to be some level of the fun, but that kind of represents the railways. That I mean, so the chaos is part of the fun of running a public system that has all the complexities and moving parts of the rail industry. So. It's a good job I was talking there because the internet dropped out a bit, which means that I can capture it here and here. Peek behind the curtain for everyone watching. So it's time for another question. Ben, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and what's your question.
So hello everyone. I'm Ben and I'm the fleet apprentice. And like Caitlin, I work for TransPennine Express. Following the footsteps, pretty much. Caitlin's been a huge godsend, if you will, because everything that I'm doing, she's already done. So yeah, I work for TransPennine Express. And my question is, how do you resolve issues outside of your control in relation to the apprenticeship rather than the workplace? Because obviously in the workplace, you would talk to your line manager or the production manager if you're on depot or something. But in the course itself, especially if you're if there's a lot of changes that are being made in the college, or staff turnover and things like that, or you struggle to get that communication, how do you resolve those issues? Because I'm actually a few months away from my endpoint assessment, so that kind of knowledge would be quite useful when I'm about to start the assessment period. So anyone want to take a stab at that?
Really good question, and I know, yeah, Sam for sure. I'm sure you have thoughts, but I know for a fact that Caitlin will have thoughts on this, given the manner in which the learning part of your apprenticeship was delivered. Caitlin, what are your thoughts on that? A very good question. What are your thoughts?
My first thing is I know exactly how you feel, and we've had many conversations about this, Ben. It is challenging, and I think a lot of it, as you say, is out of your control, and it's just persevering and doing what you can to make sure that you give yourself the best chance to succeed in your endpoint assessment. So make sure that you've put in the hours, you're up to date with everything that you need to be, you've absolutely exhausted all those questions that you have, and then if at that point you still don't get any further, it's just trust yourself to do the best that you can on the day, and just know that you've accelerated it within the business, and the relevant people know the situation, and then all you can do at that point is do your best. But keep pushing, don't give up, don't have the same sort of attitude that other people may have and then relax and take a step back. Keep pushing, because it's your apprenticeship at the end of the day. You take control of it, because it's only you who's either going to benefit or not benefit if you don't do well at the end of it. So just keep in control, keep pushing. I know it's frustrating, but the time will pass and you'll get there in the end.
It was a quagmire at the National College of YRP Rail, which is now completely gone, or at least in terms of all the people, so we can be mean about it. The thing is, there are lots of good people involved. It's not like we're being mean about all the people involved in the college. Lots of really great people who committed a lot of time to it, but the management of the college was dreadful. Yeah. And I think you guys weren't having any useful communication. You weren't clear on what your actually learning objectives were. You weren't clear on what the course even was, or in some cases, I think you weren't even clear when you had to be certain places. It was just a real shambles. Just an absolute mess. Hopefully nowhere will be as bad as that, but yeah, I think it's communicating back to your line manager, as Caitlin says. Sam, I'll throw to you. Have you got any other horror stories or anything to add to Caitlin's thoughts?
No, I think Caitlin summed up quite well. I think it's about understanding what you can do as an individual, doing your best at that, and you just, like you say, Ben, in your question, the rest of it's out of your control. So wouldn't worry about it. Just do what you can do, and I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah. I suppose James and I might say the same thing, which is it kind of a little bit reflects well on you how you respond in terms of the real world as well, because things screw up that are out of your control in a big way on the railway all the time, and you do your best within what you've got control over, and you do your best to communicate what you don't have control over. That's true for everything, like risk management. It's true for project control. It's true for the mud that's falling on the railway. At any point you communicate what you don't have control over, and you do your best with what you do. I don't want to say any more because Caitlin gave a very clear and perfect answer. James, however, wants to say something. Go on, James.
I've just got something very short to add to all of that. Is that because it comes off of what Gareth said there about only worry essentially about what's in your control. There's only so much that you can control, and so it is pointless worrying about things that you can't. It's a bit futile. Only advice, I actually did an apprenticeship while on my grad scheme, or part way while I was still on the graduate scheme, but it carried over while I was taking on my role that I'm presently in. And so I had the dynamic of moving from this graduate setting to having a managerial type role where I had to squeeze in and fit around my apprenticeship course that I was doing. So it's not a strict apprenticeship program like you guys are on, but it's still from a certification and educational perspective, I've still got to go through all of those criteria and those touch points in the endpoint assessment. If you got targets, target dates, target submissions, best advice, set yourself a false deadline and do little and often. Because if you set yourself a false deadline of something that's a bit early, and then something goes wrong, something out of your control, throws a spanner in the works, don't think, oh, don't worry, I've got 6 months till this submission needs to be in. I'll do it in 5 months and 28 days time, because in 5 months and 28 days time, you might be ill. You might be snowed under with something particular that's going on at work, whatever it is. I can only recommend, even if it's just a little bit, and it's always, I always found, I don't know about Sam or Caitlin with their work, but equally, if you once you've made a start, that feels like most of it. Although that sounds a bit bizarre, actually the hardest part is making a start. And often once you've made that start on your submission or on your work or your endpoint assessment, the work then starts to flow and follow, and it becomes that little bit easier to get in that mindset, get into that gear of doing it. And so even if you can just get the first 5% down on paper, it might take you 3 weeks longer than you planned, but that's arguably the hardest bit over and done with when it comes to what you're doing. And so yeah, little and often, and set yourself on some false deadlines, because yeah, there's loads of stuff that you won't be able to control, and you shouldn't beat yourself up about it.
Nice one. Ethan, tell us a bit about yourself. So tell us a bit about your background, where you're at in your apprenticeship, and what's your question?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Ethan. For a while, I joined the HS2 as an apprentice PM, same as Chris, about just under 6 months ago. I joined after going on a gap year to work in a different country. My question is, what would you all recommend us doing after we've rolled off our apprenticeship to optimize our growth still? Because a lot of the apprenticeship, you spend a lot of time learning and developing skills. How can that carry forward into your job role?
Really, really interesting question. Sam, do you want to pick up first, and then and I'll throw it to James, I think, because I think the two of you might have, and then Caitlin and I can wrap up. So Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you've just got to kind of keep going with everything. Obviously, you'll have finished your kind of 20%, of the time. You'll have that back, and you'll have back to 5 days a week or whatever, however it works for you. I think you've just got to keep an open mind. I think you've got to listen to the people around you. Ultimately, the people around you, especially on HS2, have got such a massive sort of breadth of experience. We've got people who've worked all over the world on every single project you can name. You're not going to get the opportunity again to work with people like that. So my main piece of advice would just be listen to those around you, take their feedback on board, and always just kind of seek out that feedback. Put yourself out of your comfort zone, and you'll no doubt keep developing.
Nice. Oh, this is going to be good, because I think certainly James and I are going to give two different answers that build on that. So Sam's gone people around you. James is going to go network through the YRP, and I'm going to talk about professional institutions and professional engineering institutions. So James, tell us about YRP and why that's a good way to kind of build that learning and
so
pitch time again.
Gareth, you kind of read my mind. Is that my initial answer is networking, and then the secondary answer would have been professional development, but there's varying ways and means to do that. Actually, through the YRP, we do support. We don't actively provide the courses or able to necessarily fund you, but we do offer talks, information, what to do about professional development as an early careerist. Now, that's whether you're on an apprenticeship presently, a graduate, or you've just left those, or you happen to be starting out a career in rail and haven't followed any of those paths. There's plenty of people that have done and can give you personal advice, but also we do put on webinars, seminars, and there's resources on our website. But the reason YRP, as Gareth's kind of pushed me in that direction, is that if you join a network such as YRP1, you're meeting people who are themselves like-mindedly sort of proactive and positive sort of mindset about the industry. They want to learn from each other. It's about cross-industry learning. And it is about kind of touching on what Sam said, and both something which I've recognised from my own personal experience within HS2. I've been very fortunate that I've been exposed to people that have worked on projects like CTR Rail, so Channel Tunnel Rail Link, actually building the Channel Tunnel itself way back when with some of our phase 1 delivery guys as well, who are a bit long in the tooth now. But equally, there's a load of people that have recently delivered Crossrail, stuff like that. So you get talking to that, but YRP kind of does that, but on steroids, really. You've got all sorts and manners of people that you can go and talk to, ask about something. I work in an infrastructure company like yourself. You might not have the first clue about how a TOC operates, but something like YRP fills that gap where you can network with someone like Caitlin, and you can learn about what Caitlin's role is, or someone in Caitlin's organisation at TP. You can go and learn what a dispatcher does on a platform, or what the responsibility of a guard is, or something. All of these kind of things, and you can learn about train planning, and it's all about building up that kind of collective, broad base of knowledge. And so networking is good because, one, you never know who you might need. sometimes there's a great saying, isn't there? Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. But equally, networking in and of itself helps you learn more from other people that you wouldn't normally be exposed to if you just turned up to the office, did your job, went home again, watched Netflix. Like, definitely get yourself out there, and if you want to learn and you're wanting to grow as a person and individual, and use that as a way to springboard your career more than anything, and get that little bit extra on your peers, do something voluntary with YRP, whether that's just being an active participant or volunteer like I do, and actively give up your time to produce and deliver things in your own time, because ultimately you can put voluntary stuff on your CV and it looks pretty good to employers, frankly, if you're wanting people to notice you and stand out from the crowd.
So if YRP is anabolic steroids, then your professional institutions would be your protein shake. So so YRP is fantastic for like that kind of evening stuff, and that networking across the whole industry, independent of engineering silos. Your professional institution is so whether it's IRO, whether it's the Permanent Way Institution that becoming the IRAIL, whether it's the Institution of Civil Engineers, the IMECI, wherever it ends up being that you follow that route to professional registration, that's a fantastic way to plot the path. So EngTech in the first instance, for anyone who's, whether they're a graduate or an apprentice, EngTech is a really good way of getting your ducks in a row, of working out, right, I need to know all this stuff, I need to get all this experience, here's how I'm going to do this. And then those institutions, particularly, the PWI, as I'm here wearing my nice PWI sort of, I'm Harry Hilling into a camera over there, by the way, everyone on the call. There's the Harry Hill side camera over there. Yeah, professional institution is a really fantastic way to structure that learning. That you don't have that structure after the apprenticeship concludes. Your professional institution can facilitate that learning. After all that waffle, Caitlin, any thoughts to add? So we've had people around you. We've had YRP and those sorts of events. We've had a professional institution. Any insights or thoughts you've got to add?
Just to echo the three of you, really. Even with the institutions, they do day courses themselves. Like last year, I did 2-day courses to do contract law and drafting course. I did a commercial skills law course. So there's always courses out there available to you that you could then go on. So you don't have to dedicate too much of your time, but you could just get a day out of work and really continue that development. But then also, even though you've done your apprenticeship, there's nothing to say that you can't go on to do a degree. So sometime in the near future, I'm hoping to do my degree. And if you're fortunate enough, your company might fund it for you. So I think it's always just keeping an open mind of what's next and what does my role require of me to do in the future, and how can I develop further. So yeah, I think just keeping an open mind and doing research to see what's out there, really.
Perfect. There we go. I'm so pleased we got that. Is a really, what's great is that so peek behind the curtain for everyone listening. None of us know what any of the other questions are, and each of them have really neatly. I'm also picking people entirely at random. They've really neatly led into each other. So no pressure, Alina. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm going to break the streak now.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Well, tell us about yourself. Where are you at? What's your experience, and what is your question?
Right. My name's Alina Ahmed. I've been on my project management apprenticeship for 2 and I'd say a smidge years, talking about we're bashing the National College for High Speed Rail now. I'm going to bash it here. It used to be my training provider for the project management apprenticeship. So I had to deal with the lovely hell, knowing as one training provider went whoosh away, and then bless the talent team, they worked so hard to try and get us on another, and so my apprenticeship got extended, so that was fun. And I pretty much came from just basically A levels, did a random gap year because I basically came out of sixth form around about COVID time, so that was a weird time to come out of stuff, and I know quite a few of my friends had to go and stay up in uni accommodations during lockdown, and I felt sorry for them. I was like, at least I could be at my parents' house, move around a bit. But I guess with my kind of question to all of you was, who were the kind of people who influenced you in your early careers, whether it's your line managers, your mentors, and like a kind of add me on with that, or have there been anyone who's like been in that kind of mentory leadership position who has maybe discouraged you from doing certain things, and how have you dealt with that?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oof. Who wants?
Can I?
James,
I'll jump
go on.
in
Super quick.
first.
Super quick. Go
So
on.
very quickly. Someone that I guess inspired me, if you like, aside from family members and all that good stuff when you're 5 years old about what railways are and could be, and watching BBC Two documentaries about bringing the bullet train to York. Actually, I would say is someone on this call. Without fanboying him and making him blush too much, but having someone like Gareth sort of inspire you from a lecturing, teaching perspective when you're semi-hungover at university, not really enjoying being there on a Tuesday morning, but it's still very interesting and entertaining, and you feel like you're genuinely learning something, is really, I think, crucial and important. And I would say that Gareth's not the only one. I've been very fortunate in my path through HS2 to have had very similar people, without going through all of them, who've been very supportive, very helpful and very encouraging. I actually have taken on your negative aspect. I have been in the unfortunate position where in HS2 we have a buddy system, where the previous cohorts buddy up with the newbies essentially, and without going into the details on it, the person that I was buddy of for the year below me was not having the experience or experiences that she needed, required, and or frankly, if you've got yourself onto an apprenticeship or a graduate program, they're demanding interview processes in and of themselves. You've earned to be there, you've earned that right to be there, and the fact that there are people that won't give you that time of day is a reflection on them, not necessarily the company that you're working for, but unfortunately it does happen. And the only thing that I can kind of say on that point is that I managed to help them sort of move away and place them in a different area within the business, worked with the future talent team to reallocate them to someone that was more befitting and appropriate and suitable to help them. The great thing is that she now runs HS2's Early Careers Network as a young person, having offboarded out of the grad scheme, whereas we were very much looking at, if we did nothing about it, they could have departed within the first 6 months of the graduate program. And so, without going on too much about all of that stuff, it definitely is, going back to sounding like a broken record, networking, expand your network, irrespective of what jobs or tasks or placements that you're on. Just get talking to loads of people, because there will be times throughout your career, whether it's at the start, the middle, the end, you will end up either in a position you don't like or with people that you don't like working with. It's an unfortunate fact of life. But if you've got a good network to pull on and draw on, often you will find that there are very good folk and kind people who are willing to help those that can help themselves. So don't be backwards in coming forwards. Work on that network, because when you need that help, help will be there. It's just being able to find it.
Caitlin, thanks, James. I mean, obviously, I'm blushing, James, for your kind words, but no, there are people around to finding those people is really key. And yeah, I had a couple of senior engineers who I've, they were role models in certain ways and maybe less role models in other ways. But they taught me everything I know, really, in terms of the day job. And so you do find these people, and I suppose there's maybe a knack. As James said, if you've got the role you have, it's because part of it is because you've got a knack for interacting well with other people, and probably you've got a knack for spying those people. But Caitlin, sorry, I'm waffling.
That's no problem.
Thoughts?
I think my role model is my line manager, Dave Walker. He's fantastic. He started off as an apprentice on the shop floor as a fitter electrician, and now he's the head of fleet commercial. And he's my role model because he kind of showed me what's possible as starting as an apprentice and what could be possible in the future. And also in the sense of he started in one role and ended up in a completely different one to where he thought he'd ever be. So in that sense, it's kind of just reassuring that you might think that this is what you want right now, but it's then okay to change your mind or have a change of path later down the line, which I then ended up as fleet commercial engineer, so I've naturally fallen into his footsteps. So he was a brilliant role model for me. But one thing I struggled with in my apprenticeship, I was the first apprentice within TP for the fleet team, and everybody else was in a position where you either had to be a chartered engineer or have like 40 years of railway experience behind you, and there was no sort of entry role into the team. So I struggled with not knowing what my next step should be, and I really struggled, what do I need to do to get from A to B? And I would have really benefited from having a mentor, or maybe somebody who bridged the gap to kind of guide me and say, if you do this, it'll set you up with the right experience to move into this position. So I suppose in that sense, I felt alone sometimes. I found it quite stressful, and I'd get myself worked up about it because you weren't guaranteed a role after your apprenticeship, which I completely understand, but I wanted to make sure that I could do everything I could to secure a role. And it was very clear to me that there was physically no role for me to move into. And I was very fortunate that in the end they made a role for me to move in, and they acknowledged that they needed, you know, if they were going to have apprentices, they need an entry role, so to speak. So in that sense, I think I would have appreciated having mentors there. And I've had different people in the business try to be a mentor, but unfortunately the challenges of work and, you know, people just have so much to deal with, it just kind of dripped away, and I didn't really have the committed support of a mentor because it wasn't their sole job. It was just something that they were trying to do as an extra. So I think in those, if you ever feel that way, it's just, as James said, build your network, ask people questions, and there'll be lots of people around who may not be internal but can guide you and give you the sort of experience that you can kind of lean on.
Thanks, Caitlin. Sam, I'm conscious that I didn't throw it to you, but I'm going to jump. Conscious of time, I'm going to jump to the next question. You can sneakily answer the previous question with the next one if you when you answer the next one if you like. Ahmed, tell us about your background and what's your question?
How's it going, Dennis? So I'm doing a project management apprenticeship at Euston. I was a bookseller by trade, but I just decided to do a career change after the world ended with COVID. And yeah, so far so good. And my question was, if I was to take you guys back in a time machine, what is a mistake that you did during your apprenticeship that you wish you can correct, and what sort of benefit would that have given you now?
What a question. What a question. Okay, Sam, go on. Well, we'll start with you. No pressure.
Yeah.
When are your balls up?
I think that's an interesting question. To be honest with you, I don't think I'd change anything. I think, you know, I definitely made mistakes in an apprentice, whether that, you know, you might get something wrong in going through a governance cycle, or, you know, it's part of your job engaging with people. You might, you know, take the wrong approach in places, but I think that's natural. I think that's part of learning. So my view on it would be I wouldn't change anything. I think everything I've done has got me to where I am. And hopefully that will keep me going in the direction I want to go. And that would be my advice would be, honestly, do not worry if you make mistakes. That's what you're there to do. The only way you learn from mistakes is by making them in the first place. So yeah, wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, everyone's moved around because Senda's just joined us, but we'll worry about that in the edit. Thanks, Sam. James, go on. You raised your finger.
So I was going to kind of follow on with Sam there, just because I don't think there's anything that I would change drastically about either my grad scheme that I did and the choice of leaving it early. Obviously, that's not necessarily something that's available to apprenticeships, because you're often, as I say, more contractually tied to your course and your thing. But equally to my apprenticeship, I'm not sure there's specifically anything that I would change. The only things that I would potentially have reconsidered, to be honest with you, is maybe choosing or being more forceful about different placements or interests that I wanted to do. Often because you're quite new to things, you don't really know. With the benefit of hindsight, I think that there are things which I would probably push to get a bit more exposure to than maybe I necessarily was afforded at the time. But that's only because I only realised that now. But also I'll kind of pause there and also give Spencer, because I know Spencer's only just been able to join because of work commitment. Spencer is a Siemens former apprentice, works for Siemens now, but he was on the apprenticeship program, and I think is currently studying at the BCRRE as well. So Gareth, it might actually be a good opportunity to throw that question in over to Spencer and see if he had his time again, what would he do differently?
What? Yeah, it's conscious. This is very last minute, chucking you into a difficult question. And Caitlin, I saw you scratching your chin. We'll come back to you, Caitlin, to find out what you. But Spencer, so what did you screw up that you'd like, or if you did, what would you change that you think would maybe set you up in better stead now?
So I think the first thing that I would answer the question is to say that I think without failure in life, you're never really going to be able to actually reach the place of success. So being willing to actually try things, and just as scary as it might look, sometimes it's worth you to just do it and fail, and maybe have one of the managers or somebody come at you and shout at you and just tell you like you've done the whole thing wrong. But at least you understand now that the next time that you're gonna have to do this, you know where you've made your mistakes. So one thing I'd say is never be scared to make mistakes, because like me personally, I've made so much mistakes within, just because I was kind of thrown into the deep end with a lot of stuff that was happening within just within Siemens. There was a lot of changes, a lot of managers left, and things were a bit all over the place. So it was like trying to keep a ship running and there's no captain. So it was like everybody else has got to kind of take up the slack. So one thing I'd say to everybody is just don't be scared to try things and fail at things. That's probably the main way to be able to learn. And I think the harder things get for you and the harder it is for you to learn things is how much you're actually learning it. Because one thing I used to realize was I'd be doing things like I'd be given a task, or I'd be probably shown a new system to use, and because I find it so hard to learn, it would cause me to. Because I'm a person, I just don't like to. I'm not a person that likes to fail, and sometimes I think when you don't do something right, it can hit you the wrong way. It can put you in a place where you're like, well, is it worth me even doing this? But it's just understanding that for you to actually reach the goal of, like, for an example, is it Ahmed, where he said like he's doing an apprenticeship within project management, or is it project engineering? Sorry if I'm wrong. For you to be able to actually get to that role where you are qualified and you are the person that you want to be, a lot of it is going to be just willing to try everything. Whether you get it right or you fail at it, it's not really. I think it's not really so much of an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's honestly, that's such good, and it kind of echoes what's been said already, Spencer. That's such good advice. Is actually creating that safe space to fail within is about having the network, having a good relationship with your line managers. Caitlin said having those anchors, but actually being comfortable to fail. Yeah, Caitlin. Anything to add to that? And indeed, your moment of, if you did have a moment of failure that you might change, because none of us have actually changed anything. I don't know, Caitlin, what do you think?
I feel like I'm going to echo what everybody else said, because I couldn't really think of anything that was really standing out, a mistake that like I deeply regretted, or I think one thing I wish I could change was my self-confidence back then during my apprenticeship. And I think it all comes down to that fear of failing and fear of not doing well, and just realizing that, as everybody said, in order to succeed, you do need to fail, because that's how we grow and that's how we learn. And I was just so fearful of that, and I wish I just believed in myself more and stopped stressing about everything. Because
you certainly didn't show it. You did not show. You seem very, and I have to say, rightly sure of yourself. When I was teaching you, you seemed very confident. So you hid it well, even if internally, I'd say I share the same. I might seem like I'm an extrovert, but actually, I cause myself deep psychic damage every time I don't know why. Why did I start a podcast that has guests? Given that I cause myself stress and anxiety every single time. But I suppose pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. So we have got where everyone's moved around. Adil, I think you're the last person someone shout if I've missed anyone. I think Adil, you're last on the list. So tell you introduce yourself a little bit. What's your question? Tell us, and we'll round out.
So what potential is there to actually progress as an apprentice career-wise? Meaning in terms of maybe somebody might have always wanted to get into the rail industry, but they haven't been able to secure a role that they actually want to actually secure in their future career aspect and what they want to aspire. So what progress would they be in regards to this potential?
Such a good. So the last person who's going to answer this is Caitlin, because of your line manager. I think that'll give us I think that'll neatly kind of round out the kind of how far you can get. So I'll start. Spencer, actually, I don't know. You want to answer this one, Spencer? What you know? How far can you get? Where can you go? And how does, I suppose, sidestepping is how I would describe it. What potential is there for sidestepping?
So the one thing with the rail industry that I've personally found is that a lot of it is about who you know. So like your networking is quite important. So it's one thing where it's more, like I said, it's more a thing like who you know over like what you know in some circumstances. Because like obviously the technical aspect is very important, but having that network of people, maybe from like internally and as well as outside of your organization, is very important within the rail industry. As far as like potential of the rail, where you can get to, I think that comes down more to just how far you want to go and where your aspirations are actually what will want to take you. Because with the railway, it's quite a big industry, but it's also very small, where it's very community based, and it's a kind of thing where everybody moves around from company to company. So I think if you've got an idea like, okay, well, for an example, maybe I want to be a signaling engineer, and maybe you're probably not in signaling at the moment, you're probably working in, for an example, telecoms. It's probably a good idea not to look at it as, oh, well, I'm in the wrong place at the moment, because what you end up finding is that a lot of the things that you would learn from all these different other disciplines, they always lead on for you to be able to end up in the discipline that you actually want to be in. Because with a lot of the railway, it's very like it's as a big system, the subsystems are all very interconnected. So what you find is exactly that, what I've said, that a lot of the processes and a lot of the things that you need to do within different roles, they're very similar. So I'd say that you just have to, just try and push doors and not be a person where if you get told no, you just take it as, oh, well, that's it now. You just have to just keep knocking on those doors and keep trying to speak to people that maybe they are doing the role that you want to do, and ask them, how did you get there, what steps can I take, and just being very, very proactive. Because the potential, I think the potential within rail is quite big. It's not like many other industries.
Absolutely. I'm conscious of time. I'm going to throw to Kate. Go on. Okay, James, a quick word, and then we're going to throw to Caitlin and Sam for the last word.
Well, just very quickly, because all of what Spencer said there's bang on. Just to tee up on what he said there, is that it is about that proactive nature, and showing that you're able. Until recently, HS2's CEO, its head, Mark Thurston, was a former apprentice himself, who started out way back when in the early 80s as an electrician, effectively doing an apprenticeship course,
ending up being the highest paid civil servant in the country. So I don't know how. So there's your aspiration. You can really get the heights.
Exactly. So you literally, the sky's the limit, and your potential is what you make it, really. And I think Spencer's bang on. And the only thing that I would add is that in my own experience in my job presently, things aren't great given current government announcements. But it is about trying to make the best of what opportunities still present you. And Spencer's dead right. Either you can do that within your own company and you can see about sideways moves, or, as you say, a bit of shadowing with other people, or because, as you said, it feels like a very big industry, the rail industry, but actually the wider you cast your net from a networking perspective, sounding like a broken record here,
it feels smaller.
The smaller it feels, it really is. Absolutely. I mean, it'd be remarkable how you know. So that's what I would say.
Sam, throw it to yourself for sidestepping and where you can get. I suppose we've covered a lot, but anything else to add?
No, I think just apply yourself, use the skills that you learn during your apprenticeship and the people you meet, and apply yourself on a daily basis. And I think you can go wherever you want.
Caitlin, I mean, you've already given us a bit of a hint as to, your experience of how far people can get. I think it's nice for you to have the last word of a panelist before I start vigorously waving my arm to say goodbye.
I think the one thing that I want to say is that your apprenticeship is probably the best opportunity that you'll have. And if you are somebody who wants to succeed and go far, your apprenticeship is a springboard. It's the only opportunity you'll have to learn from different companies, from different people in the industry. Use it as an opportunity to do different placements. We're always welcoming apprentices to come and spend time at TP, so please come and get in contact and spend time with us. But this is your best opportunity now to learn as much as you can about the whole system of the railway as it works at different functions, whether it's signalling, track, train operators, HS2. So use your opportunity now as an apprentice to get that skill, get those knowledge, and then when you do step into a role, you'll have those foundations that will allow you to do those side steps or to then move up the chain, so to speak. So, yeah.
Yeah, I cannot think of a more perfect way to end the session. Everyone, all of you, panelists, apprentices, thank you so much for joining. This has been a really interesting conversation. Just honestly fantastic. I hope it's done what YRP wanted. It's certainly made for a really interesting conversation that I'm looking forward to people seeing.
The usual plugs. Thank you everyone for listening to this in audio-only format. I think it probably worked all right, apart from my rather improvised introduction and general wafflings, kind of like now. Leave a little review if you like. It helps. The other plugs, patreon.com/GarethDennis for the Patreon to support more of this sort of thing happening ad infinitum until, you know, I die of old age or whenever. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise. The Build HS2 top looks so funny there, but everyone should wear one. My hope is that I can get the front row to wear them at the next Labour rally or leadership speech. Get everyone in the audience to wear them and face Rachel Reeves. Anyway, paypal.me/GarethDennis for the loose change and abuse, and of course the chat. Hello everyone in the chat. Hopefully this was interesting and useful for a few of you who are perhaps thinking about a career in the industry or starting out. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord. Next week is episode 205, and after some requests we have seen, we're going to ask, or rather answer, or rather discover, should I say, that time when British Rail ran boats. It's going to be a brief history of Sealink et al. We're going to look into Sealink because, you know, why not? Fun little thing to do. Nice little purposeless episode other than some fun little localized history. Let's see what we can learn, shall we? Back to the crew.
It only really remains for me to, and as many people who don't feel embarrassed about it, to vigorously wave into the camera to say goodbye. Thanks everyone. Cheerio, cheerio. Stay on the line and I'll say a proper thank you. Cheerio. I'm going to rotate this, I'm going to do this, and okay, the hell with it. As the Intercity 225 fades away, it's just me anyway. It's just me on my own in a Teams meeting. Has it worked? James, has it worked? Has it, me over there, has it worked? Me and the mic, has it worked? Don't know. Will it work? I don't know what this train is here. I'm gonna stand on the footplate of this thing. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna go and stand over here. God, I don't know what this seems. Everyone seems to be quite big fuss about whatever this thing is.